Welcome back to The Journey Unfolds. Another week has come and gone. I want to talk about joy. And I want to talk about what we do when life is just lifing and it can feel impossibly difficult at times. What if joy just feels hard to access? The thing is, we all know that life is hard and we are filled with internal battles. There's external battles. We look at the news, we look at what's going on around us. We see corruption, we see greed, we see abuse, we see tragedies, we see a lot of things that are heartbreaking on the daily. And what it can feel like to us is almost like we can be swept up into this negative worldview, this vortex where everything seems bad all the time. And sometimes we'll tell ourselves, I will feel joy when a season comes to a close, a problem is resolved, we get the clarity that we're looking for, our relationship gets better, or we get that job, or when we feel safe, and. Joy is so often attached to circumstance. And I've known this, and you know this rationally forever. But isn't it fascinating how life can just take you and sweep you under, and you can forget the very basic principles that I'm going to talk about today? Let me start with this. It has been several months now of what feels genuinely like a very difficult season. And yesterday was a really hard day, a lot of tears, a lot of frustration. And I knew just looking at myself in the situation and getting curious about what's going on with you, Katie, I knew that I needed to pull away from it. I needed to get out of my office. I needed to go out and be in nature and really process and allow myself to feel and cry as much as I needed to. So, what I can say truly happened is that throughout the course of the day, my thoughts and feelings hijacked me, took me captive, brought me into a space of hopelessness, fear, overwhelm, self-doubt, and all kinds of insecurities were coming out to play. And in those moments, when we feel like that, it's amazing how dark things can feel so quickly. So I did take myself out, went for a walk, processed a lot of things, cried a lot. And then when I came home, I sat in my backyard and I actually was overcome, and I can only call this a divine intervention. I was overcome with this perspective shift. It's something I've always known, and I talked about it at the beginning, is joy. I found myself asking the question, okay, Katie, what brings you joy? And I thought about it. I thought about, oh, it's so many things. It's my family, my husband, my kids. It's our beautiful backyard. It's our animals. It's fresh coffee in the morning. It's watching a great TV show. It's getting into a good book. It's going for those walks. It's being in the water. It's being in nature. And suddenly I was overcome with this sense of there is so much around me to be grateful for, and so many things that bring me joy, even in the midst of all this suffering, all this chaos, all this deep sadness and grief. I started thinking about it and I could feel myself almost getting excited because I'm a creator. I want to create more. But here I have been really just trying to survive in the onslaught of so much uncertainty and so much battling with my own demons, if you will. And I realized something. I have somehow put my own joy on the shelf. I'm like, you're gonna have to sit there until I get my situation figured out, till I get my life sorted out, till I figure out my identities and find meaning and purpose and all of the things. And when we do that, we rob ourselves of the very thing that we can be doing to cultivate the life that God created for us to live. What I realized in that moment is joy has to be present within us before it can spill out into how we experience life and how we serve others and impact others. Considering joy and how to create more of it is not dismantling or dismissing or removing the realities of life, which is things can get very hard. So if you've watched my episodes before, you know that my favorite verse is in John 15. And especially when we're talking about the vine, right? The fruit of the vine and how we are the branches. In this verse, we're both talking about John 15, 4 to 5, and also I'm going to refer to verse 11 as well. So Jesus first invites us to abide in him. And this whole lesson that life has been delivering to me has really been about letting go of the striving, the performing, the need to control and to make things better immediately, like yesterday. All of that are elements of the me that is slowly dying, and learning to be humble and learning how to let God actually lead my life, like actually, for real. And in this verse, he really speaks about his joy being within us. So when you think about the vine and how it's feeding and nurturing and providing all the nutrients to the branches in order to produce the fruit, well, of course, as a branch, I am being nourished. And that joy comes from the abiding, simply abiding, being, recognizing that I am connected to the vine, to Christ himself. I receive his life, and with that, I receive the joy that he has for me. So it's really about allowing that joy to grow within us and to produce the fruit that is what? Joy. Because if we're going to go and love on people and create that impact and touch lives, think about it. We don't want to produce fruit that is bitter or that is poisonous. What if joy isn't the reward that you get when you finally fix your circumstances? What if joy is actually the fruit of what you already have within you, so long as you are willing to abide in that, to be connected? Isn't joy something we all want more of? When you really think about it, we want more laughter. We want more fun. We want more joy, love, connection. We want all the good things that God gives us, but we want it in abundance. And if you go to Galatians 5, verses 22 to 23, we learn there that joy really is the fruit of the Spirit. Fruit grows because the branch remains connected to its source. And we don't have to tape artificial joy and pretend to be happy and toxic positive thinking our way through things. Actually, we can have joy at the same time that we're hurting. If anything, joy is that thing that can bring us comfort to help us get through the hurting parts. And we can be honest about pain while also allowing God to grow something deeper within us that has joy wrapped in it. We all know that joy and sorrow can coexist at the same time. And I can certainly attest to that because what I experienced yesterday was really difficult. And yet, the trees, the leaves blowing in the wind and the sound that creates, beautiful. And even as I was sitting there just discerning all this, I could hear the crows. There's times where we think, oh, they're so annoying. But actually, I'm like, wait, that's the sound of nature. That's the sound of something beautiful. And I got thinking to myself as I was reflecting this morning and praying that when we stop and actually take inventory, if you will, and when we look around, when we really think about all those precious gifts that we're given, suddenly the things that we thought mattered so much don't matter. I'm in a season right now where God has provided a way, somehow miraculously, for us to be financially okay as I try to figure out where I'm going next. I don't take that lightly because I know what it is to be constantly afraid of not being able to pay the bills. I know that so well, but in this particular time of my life, we've been blessed. We are okay for the moment, and I will never not see how God is in that, how it's miraculous in its own way that I'm able to do the healing and the discernment and all of the things that I'm meaning to do in this season, and knowing that God will provide exactly what's meant to come next, and that I don't have to be attached to what that looks like. So I have been realizing that the external circumstances, what kind of work I'm meant to do next, what that looks like, where it is, and how long, blah, 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 it's irrelevant because I have what I need right now. I have so much, and many of us do, most of us do. I want to bring us also to Philippians 4:8. In this verse, it's really about focusing on what is lovely and praiseworthy without denying reality. It's refusing to accept an incomplete picture of reality. Aren't we humans notorious for focusing on the negative, for getting so consumed by what's not working and what's wrong at the expense of everything that's going right and that is beautiful? And pain is very real. Nobody, myself included, is pretending it isn't. We're not trying to downplay that. It's real, but it's not all that's real. I know looking back at the last year of just consistent challenge after challenge, I know God has delivered the right person at the right time, the right thing that I was meant to read, the right scripture, the right circumstance, the right. I've always been given what I need that day, that moment, that time of my life, because I'm being provided for and I'm being cared for by someone that loves me as he does you. Let me make that clear. When I do see what's going on around us, corruption absolutely does exist. And if we choose to be cynical, if we choose to look at it that way, we could say the world's going to, you know what, it's going down the toilet. But actually, there's so much goodness too. There's so much goodness, there's so much kindness, there's beauty. You don't have to look far to see beauty in nature. And there's laughter, there's love, and God is present in the simplest of things. And I can say it is that faith, that presence that has comforted me and carried me through some of those desperate, desperate moments where I don't know what to do or who to turn to or where to go. Almost borderline, like, should I just check myself into a psych ward at this point? And I just know that God sees all. He's above all. He is bigger than all of it. Why do we think we need to know everything? In fact, I'd rather not know everything. It's too much. It's overwhelming. And that's where fear comes in. And another thing I want to say about this that ties into the whole joy equation is the distinction I learned in leadership, and that is how to move from your head into your heart. I've talked about this before because it's so important. Our head, we need it for rational thought. We need to be able to make realistic decisions. We need to think things through. Don't for a second think that I'm downplaying the importance of our brains and our ability to make sound decisions. But here's where it gets really interesting. We have another brain in our hearts. It's a different type of brain. It is a spiritual brain. And this is where I believe God lives in us. Jesus really makes his home here because that is where we hear and we receive the quiet, calm knowing that comes from being tapped into something divine that has everything we could ever need. Because while our brain is important, our mind is important for putting two and two together, it's also the birthplace of all of our thoughts and fears and rationalizing and overthinking and our insecurities. Everything lives there. And if we can just come away from that chatter, that nonstop chaos, and come into our hearts, there's that place that we call home. And that is where joy lives. That is where joy can be found. It's in here. It's where our deepest, deepest, most inner selves knows where we really belong, where home really is. And whether or not you consider yourself spiritual, religious, whatever, I'm not here to tell you what to think or what to believe, but I am here to say what's here is limited. What's here is beyond rational thought. It's beyond the intellect. It's deeper. It knows. It's connected to something bigger than us. And that is where spirit lives. That is where Christ makes his home. And it is the place that is sacred. And so I invite you, if you're going through something challenging right now, this is where you're going to find comfort. This is where you're going to find hope. This is where you're going to find peace. And it's not going to come from you. It's going to come from the God who created you. So I invite you to go there and ask yourself these questions. I want you to think about what brings you joy. Is it the people in your life who feel like home? who love you no matter what, who support you no matter what? Is it the conversations that you love to have that make you come alive about certain topics, maybe things you're passionate about? What makes you laugh? What makes you laugh until you pee your pants? Like, what just brings you that kind of joy where you just know everything's okay in the world because I could laugh about this? Where do you notice that your shoulders can drop and your chin can soften? Where you can just relax? Where do you notice that work becomes meaningful for you, soul filling for you? Have you thought about nature? What does sitting by the water feel like to you, whether that's the ocean or a lake or a river, a stream? What about all of the life that is nature? What does that do for you? What about shared meals with people that you love? Your family, your friends? What is that like? What is it like to grow your relationship with someone that you love? Maybe your marriage, maybe your really close friendship, maybe your daughter or son or mother or father. What kind of joy is there in that? And then, of course, there's those quiet moments of prayer and meditation and connecting with the divine, connecting with Christ Himself. What is that for you? For me, if I'm honest, as I look at my computer screen, I have desktop images in the background. They're always scenic and they just make my heart happy because they're beautiful and they remind me of the artist behind the design, behind the beautiful, incredible scenic views that I look at every day. I wish I could just beam myself through the screen and just be in those places, but this will have to do for now. As a takeaway, here are some questions I would love for you to sit with. Number one, what genuinely brings you joy? I want you to think about everything you could think of, and I guarantee you, if you put time into this, you would come up with hundreds of things. Even the simplest little things like your fluffy slippers on a cold winter morning. Where have you been postponing joy until something changes? We all do it. I've just shared with you that I'm guilty. What goodness has weariness and tiredness and exhaustion caused you to overlook? What kind of beauty surrounds you that maybe you haven't looked at? We can fall into these ruts almost where we don't see the beauty, where we forget to look, to observe, to be mindful, to pay attention. What do you see, hear, taste, smell, and experience that you haven't given due credit to because you've been caught up in your own suffering or struggle? The antidote to struggle is gratitude, and joy is part of gratitude. And like I said with John 15, where can you abide more? Where can you let go and really just connect to the vine and know that your fruit and all that you're meant to produce in your life comes from the vine, Christ Himself? And then what might God be inviting you to notice again in your life? Maybe something you've forgotten, something that went dormant, something that needs to be brought to life, something that brings you out of yourself and allows you to create again. So, as I wrap this all up with a lovely big bow, I want to say this. This world is a hard place. Nobody gets out of here alive, and nobody gets to have an easy shortcut where we don't go through impossibly difficult things. And so we don't need to minimize what hurts. The lack of certainty, the lack of clarity, the lack of answers that I'm facing right now are not things that I take lightly or that I can just brush off and say it's fine. But the truth is, regardless of all of that, there's so much room here for joy. There's so much beauty to notice, to observe, and to receive. Receiving is a big piece of this too, to take it in, to create more joy from here because we're going to put it out there. And God is not waiting for us on the other side of the season. I tend to, I wouldn't say forget that, but when my thoughts and my feelings overwhelm me and I become captive to them, it's like God's not here. I have to figure this out on my own. He'll be waiting for me when I get out of this. And then I beat myself up and I go through this period of shame on you, Katie. You're making it all about you. And, it's just fascinating how we can be so unbelievably hard on ourselves when the truth is God's present here, now, within us, especially when we abide and we choose it. There is no separation. And finally, I just want to say maybe, just maybe, joy isn't something that we have to chase. Maybe it's already here. When we abide and we receive and we notice it, it's already here. I hope today's episode supports you. Regardless of what you may or may not be going through, I invite you to explore, to go deeper with this. Where is the joy in your life? How can you cultivate more of it? And in turn, create more of it for the world, because the world sure needs it. I'll see you next time on The Journey Unfolds.